Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
119.73.
Yep.
Psalm 119.
Verse 73.
119, verse 73.
I know, on time.
Here we go. 70.
73. Okay, we're starting here,
Verse
guys.
73. Psalm 119, verse 73. This is going to be NIV.
Okay, NIV is okay. That's what Jim reads. I don't hold it against
try to
him.
find 84 in the next verse. All right, Psalm 119, verse 73, which is Yud, or Yod. Your hands made me and formed me. Give me understanding to learn your commands. May those who fear you rejoice when they see me, for I have put my hope in your word. I know, Lord, that your laws are righteous, and that in faithfulness you have afflicted me. May your unfailing love be my comfort, according to your promise to your servant. Let your compassion come to me that I may live, for your law is my delight. May the arrogant be put to shame for wrongdoing me without cause, but I will meditate on your precepts.
Amen to that.
May those who fear you turn to me, those who understand your statutes. May I wholeheartedly follow your decrees, that I may not be put to shame.
I think I interrupted you. I thought the way your voice trailed off, I thought it was all over. So, okay, let's see here. Today, what is today? It's the 7th. It's November 7th. Okay, I'll get that later. November 7th. November 7th. Let's see if we have a commentary for that. November 3, 4, 5. Okay, passage of trouble. The Scottish Reformation came painfully, costing the lives of many staunch Protestants, including John Nisbet, whose 16-year-old son later penned this account in a neat fashioned hand. On the 7th of November, 1685, my father with other three desired to go and end a controversy in one of their Christian societies, upon which he left me to the kind care of Providence and went on his intended journey. But early on Sabbath morning, he and the other three were seized by 40 of the enemy. The night before, I had gone to the Earl of Loudoun's house, and in my sleep I dreamed of all the passages of trouble my father was in. I awoke with much sorrow of spirit, and immediately rose and essayed prayer. But alas, alas, I was dead, lifeless, and overwhelmed with such a flood of sorrow that I could do nothing all that day but sigh to the breaking of my heart. At night, two young ladies came and sat down by me, and seeing me in such sorrow, asked me if I had got any meat. I was told them I would eat none all that day, upon which they opened their skirts, wherein they had some meat, and both very kindly urged me to eat. But I would eat none. At which the young ladies burst into tears, and one of them says, "This morning 40 of the enemy came upon your father near to Fenwick Kirk. They have killed the other three, and your father has received 7 wounds and is prisoner." At the hearing of which sad news, I was struck to the heart. I arose immediately and went out to the fields. But kind Providence ordered the matter so that, though very dark, I met an eminent Christian, William Woodburn, my father's friend, who counseled me to acquiesce in and submit to the sovereign will of God, who is a father to the fatherless. Upon this blessed advice and seasonable counsel, the weight of my burden was much taken off, my sorrow alleviated, and all fretting at the dispensation prevented. I spent this night looking to the Lord, that my father might be strengthened to be faithful unto death. And Psalm 10, 16 through 18 says, O Lord, you will always rule, but nations will vanish from the earth. You listen to the longings of those who suffer, you offer them hope, and you pay attention to their cries. And I'm about to lose my Bible here. Let's see here, to their cries for help. You defend orphans and everyone else in need. So there you go. Kind of hard reading that Old English. I guess that's kind of like what it's like for you reading the Old Hebrew.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, you can understand it, you can read it, but you can't really understand what's being said. So anyway, people willing to give up their lives for Jesus. That's pretty wonderful. Let's see here. We have, where am I? All right, well, we'll just go to the study, and we're going to be in 1 Timothy verse 6:5 is where we're starting today. And we've got Sergio with us because Jim is gone. Jim is traveling, and he'll be back. He should be back probably in a couple hours, if not sooner, but he just didn't know if he could make it to class tonight. So anyway, let's see. And this is like the third week we've had class, and I'm still as tired as I was on the first of the 3 weeks. There's just long hours every day, and there's so much to do. But anyway, I always get excited. Once we get into class, you start getting your energy, and by the end of class, I'm okay again. And then I go home and collapse. We're in 1 Timothy 6, verse 5, so you can read that whenever you're ready.
All right, I'm ready. 1 Timothy 6, 5. Do I start from 5 or start from the beginning?
Yep.
False teachers. Okay, so I'll start from end of 2. Teach and urge these things. If anyone teaches a different doctrine and does not agree with the sound words of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the teaching that accords with godliness, he is puffed up with conceit and understands nothing. He has unhealthy craving for controversy and for quarrels about words, which produce envy, dissension, slander, evil suspicions, and constant friction among people who are depraved in mind and deprived of the truth, imagining that godliness is a means of gain.
Okay.
That was verse 5.
That's where it starts. Okay. Well, this one is a little longer. It says, useless wranglings of men of corrupt minds and destitute of the truth, who suppose that godliness is a means of gain, and then it says, from such withdraw yourself. Do they have that, or not in there? It's not in the next verse either. Okay. Well, that's B. What does it say in B? Always check the footnotes, Charlie. It admits the NU text omits that sentence, but it probably is original. Why that wouldn't be, I can't imagine. So anyway, read that again. Useless wranglings of men of corrupt minds, destitute of the truth, who suppose that godliness is a means of gain. From such withdraw yourself. Okay, so we'll get in and read the analysis of that. I'll get rid of that, and let's see here. Paul continues his list concerning those who do not consent to teach the wholesome words of our Lord Jesus Christ. This begins with teachings which lead to useless wranglings. How does yours say?
First, useless wranglings.
The first
conservation among people who deprave of mind, deprived of truth, imagining godliness the means of gain. Where's this?
Anyway, useless wranglings. The Greek word is based on a root which gives a sense of rubbing away or constant friction. It is only found here in the Bible, and the sense is that someone who wears away time arguing over minutia. Now that's funny because the book of Malachi uses the word rubbed, and that's how I translate it, because that's a literal translation. Men rubbing God, in other words, wearing him out, presenting animals that are rubbed for sacrifice, meaning the animals are not fit for it. And here we got a word in the Greek that has basically the same meaning. Let's see here. It's only found here in the Bible. The sense is someone who wears away, rubs away time, arguing over minutia. Now this is, and I know I mentioned this last week or the week before, because it's something that I've talked about, is that people love to argue over nothing. They'll have their view on a particular verse or a particular doctrine or a particular precept, and they will argue over minutia. They will simply argue for the sake of argument. You could show them where they're wrong. It doesn't matter. They'll just keep arguing. And this is, Paul warns against people like this. People like this should not be given the time of day, because they're wasting time. They're only, I quoted the verses from Proverbs, don't argue with a fool, lest you be be degraded in his eyes or something, or in your own eyes something, and then argue with the fool lest he be exalted in his own eyes. So there's a time when you argue with the fool, there's a time when you don't. And, if it's going to harm other people, you should take up the argument and you should silence them with your argument. But he will continue to be foolish, and he will continue to be a fool, and he'll continue to argue. At that point, you just drop it. You say, you know what, I've given my analysis. It's correct based on the Bible. What you are teaching is faulty, and I'm done with you, okay? And, but this is the type of people that you want to have that logic with. They sit there and they argue over minutia. This perverse attitude demonstrates someone who consumes his time and the time of others, arguing over things that have absolutely no practical value at all. There's nothing that will edify anybody. There's nothing that will build anybody up. There's nothing that will, you're just not going to get any sense of achievement or accomplishment when you've left the class or the church service or the conversation with that person. You're not going to be any further along in your life than you were before, and you'll probably be, less, what's the word? Not further along, but hindered, because you've wasted your time. You've lost that time arguing with people. It's not worth doing it. Anyway, this and the other things which Paul has already described in the previous verse come from, in Paul's words, men of corrupt minds. And that's, it doesn't matter what it is. It can be religion, it can be politics, it can be work related. It doesn't matter what it is. There are people out there that are simply corrupt in their thinking, and they have no desire except to exalt themselves and to make other people look goofy, foolish, stupid, whatever the purpose is. And you probably know people like this. They're just out there, and they do not add anything of value to people's lives. And, they're there. And Paul acknowledges this. This has been the human condition since the beginning. It was that way during the time of the Old Testament. He wasn't really, I was thinking of Nabal, but he wasn't really an example of that. He was just a selfish, greedy guy. But anyway, the Old Testament will highlight people like this. There are several places for certain, sons of Belial and whatever, but Paul's time they were there. They're there in the writings of the church throughout history, and they're there today. People that they want nothing but to cause dissension, to cause division, to exalt themselves, etc. Anyway.
But I see how easy it would be to become something like this.
Oh, yeah.
Quite often I talk to somebody, I argue about something, and I realize I'm not really
building them up.
I'm just for the sake of argument. What's the point of this? And then if I don't catch myself and I won't stay in the word, I won't try to improve. But it's so easy to just keep doing this and do this. And eventually you probably become just like that.
But what does that say about you? It says you're not one of those people and you're checking yourself.
Okay.
And that's absolutely right. And, there are times where I will say something I wish I didn't say. There are times where I'll do something I wish I didn't do. And the difference is that there are people out there that will just say it doesn't matter. And then there are you who have a relationship with the Lord, and you regret these things. You talk to the Lord about it. Lord, I don't know why I did that. And those type of things show that you are being convicted and you are doing the right thing, even though you're not doing the right thing in that instance. And my thought is, because I typed a commentary this morning and it included King David and Bathsheba, is that David did wrong. And he's the king, and he could have told Nathan the prophet, he said, I'm having you executed. And he didn't. Instead, he was horrified that his sin was exposed and that he had done what he had done without any conscience at all. And instead of having Nathan executed, which he could have done as the king, instead, what did he do? He wrote the 51st Psalm. Okay? It shows you why he was a man after God's own heart, is because he cared. We do things in this life without thinking sometimes, or we do things thinking it's expedient and it's going to come to a good end. And the old saying, the end never justifies the means is true. Okay, you think it is at the time, I need to get this done, I need to do this for this reason or whatever, and you find out that that is in fact the wrong thing. And then you feel guilty about it.
So I get it. So this speaks about, I might do all of these once in a while, but this speaks of people who completely, that's who they are, that's all they do.
Paul would say they have a seared conscience. Okay. He's got that term. A seared conscience means that it's you take a steak and you sear it, it's burned. The blood is going to stay in after that point. Nothing is going to escape. Nothing is going to come in. So you've got a seared conscience. That means that nothing is coming in. Nothing is convicting you. It's just seared. And that is exactly right. If you are feeling guilty over the thing you said in private, that you muttered something you wish you didn't, or you did something, or if that bothers you, you're probably on the right path at this time, because the Lord understands our weaknesses. He understands our failings. Like I said, I've been tired now for 3 weeks, constantly tired. And I know I get upset easier at Hideko, and I don't mean to, but the dogs are barking and I can't think, and I yell at the dog, shut up, and I that's just human nature. He understands that we are limited fallen beings. And when we have pressure points that are pushed, then, and if you're like me, I've said this before, I admit it openly, is that I live right on the edge of my abilities all the time. I get up early, I'm going all day long, and I got to go down the mall and I got to work there. I got to take care of 7-Eleven. I've always got something going on, which means I have no free time. And when something interferes in what I'm doing, it causes me stress. Okay, and you shouldn't live that way. I know that. It's just the way I'm geared. You've got A personality, you've got B personality, you've got X personality, and whatever. I live at the edge of my ability to bring in more things. I don't have time for that. And yesterday I was very busy, and a lot of things, very stressful things, all happened within about 20 minutes of each other. And I was just completely frazzled. And Sergio came over. He said, I want to come over. And I thought he was coming for one reason, and it was for another. But
bringing more stress.
No, actually what happened is I said, okay, I'm going to put all of this beside. I've got hundreds of emails that are unanswered, literally. And I said, I'm just going to turn off the computer. And so Sergio and I watched a movie together, and we ate some pizza. And that was the first time in 3 weeks that I've had any real peace in my head. It was great, but it's not something I would normally do. And but it was great, and I won't say the name of the movie, okay? But it was he and I liked this. Blood and guts, okay? A lot of blood and guts, and so it made me happy. I don't like movies. I was saying this to Sergio, and I know he feels the same. Any sexual nuances, I don't like that. It's uncomfortable, and I don't like that. And I do not like movies with a lot of vulgarity. If if you're watching a war movie and somebody cusses, that's what soldiers do. That does not bother me. That's a real situation with people. But if it's just a constant stream of cussing, I can't stand it. I'd rather. But he's got Video Angel. So what we watched, I don't even know if it had cussing in it or not. It cuts all that out. And something which is cool, and I didn't know this, is if you have subtitles, Video Angel actually cuts out the cussing from the subtitles too. So I didn't realize that was a nice touch there, because we've never had the subtitles on. I don't know why they were on yesterday, but is that a service you pay for, or do you just app? Okay, okay. I just, you had it on. It was great. So anyway, great movie, lots of blood and guts, and so I went to bed satisfied. Anyway, let's see here. Where were we? They are men of corrupt minds. The meaning of this is that these people have hearts that are wicked, and they focus on evil. They teach what is evil and spread any falsehood which suits their depravity. They are men who are, Paul's words, destitute of the truth. Okay, so he's just building upon these types of people. They have wickedness on their minds, and they don't care if they tell untruths. Not to bring in, because we are done with the political season. But if you can watch these people during the campaigns, and they just utter lies. And nobody calls them out on it. Nobody questions them on it. That's the type of people we're speaking about here. And there are people that are in churches that teach just like this. They just lie. They just make stuff up out of the word. They don't have any basis in reality in the word. And they just say whatever comes to their minds. Unfortunately, there are actually people like that in churches that are teaching. And, this is a problem that we have allowed into our society. There's nothing you can do about it because we have freedom of religion in this country. And so, you have to let people teach what they're going to teach. But it's very sad, because there are people that have exactly this attitude. And as it says, they are destitute of the truth. They have no truth in them at all. Their moral fiber is completely broken down. And whatever they want, they will say, this is, I gave this example probably in class before, but I went to meet a guy that I went to Israel with, and he was visiting a church up in St. Peter, Tampa or something. So Hideko and I went up there to see him, and he spoke at the church for maybe 30 or 40 minutes. But the pastor got up after he spoke, and it was kind of a charismatic church anyway, but he just got up and he just started lying. The Lord just told me that we need somebody to mop the floor on Sunday, and who's going to do that? And the Lord just told me, and he was standing there saying these things, just one after, he was giving a bucket list of all the things that he wanted done, and he's saying, claiming that the Lord's telling him, and he must have said it 5 times. The Lord told me this, and the Lord told me that. It was always something that had to do with helping him out, a selfish, thing, like the Lord is there to minister to this guy alone. That's the kind of person that should not be in the pulpit. He's just misdirecting people. Vincent's word studies of the words destitute of the truth says that the meaning of this indicates that they once knew the truth, but they put it away from themselves. Thus they have nothing but that which is false to pass on to their hearers. Okay? They know, people that are in politics know what's true. They know when they're lying to their people, but they also know that their people won't care if they lie to them. And so they lie instead of telling the truth. And eventually it just becomes almost truth in their own mind. They can't even process what's true anymore. And that's exactly what's happening. And that's the seared conscience. It's the conscience that says, I can say whatever I want to get the means of gain that I want, which is going to be the next point, by the way. But they have nothing but that which is false to pass on to their hearers. This type of person doesn't look to Christ for godliness at all. Instead, Paul says, here it is, they suppose that godliness is a means of gain. Okay? And I would say that there are more preachers and teachers in America that this particular set of words fit than the previous one. In other words, there are people in the previous category, they're destitute of the truth, that look at being in the ministry as a means of gain. Okay, but there are also people that are not destitute of the truth, but they are in the ministry because they see it as a means of gain. Okay, they know the truth, they're willing to teach it, but their idea is, I'm going to get enriched by being in the ministry. And it's funny that this verse came up because we just had here's what we have. In Sarasota, I got to give you back information in case you don't know what these things are. In Sarasota, they have what's called backflow preventers. You've got potable water that comes into your house. That's potable means it's drinkable. It's usable water. That comes in. And what they're afraid of is that the lines going into the house, if there's, say, a power outage or something, the water that's in the house could siphon back into the system. And so they have what's called a backflow preventer. And they're useless. It's a total boondoggle. Trust me on this. I've been in water most of my life. They're pointless, but they make people rich, and they're people that pay other people off so that they can get these things, so that they get contracts, and so it's just a boondoggle. But backflow preventer says that the water can go this way, but it cannot go that way, and it's an expensive little device. Okay, well, we had one in the back of the church. And this backflow preventer, it comes up out of the water main, which is underground. It comes up from a pipe. They put a tap into the water main. So imagine you've got a round pipe, and you now want to put in, you've got a new building. You're going to put in a tap into that pipe. You've got a screw into it. It's got a saddle that holds it in place, and now you've got a tap. And it doesn't leak or anything. Okay, so now you've got the tap, and then you can put a pipe into that and go into the new building. They go from the water to the new building, and when they do, they put in a backflow preventer somewhere between the main line and the building. Okay, and that is to protect the water system. Okay, I'm getting to the point here. You have the backflow preventer. Here in this building, we have a building that goes to the road. Okay, it goes right up to the road. This is a strip mall, and so you've got a road that goes between two buildings. There's a building over there and a building here, and there's a road that goes between the two. They put a backflow preventer in the road. It's a copper line. It comes up about 1.5 feet, goes over for 2 feet, and goes back down. What do you think is going to happen when you have a backflow preventer right at the edge of the road? What do you think is going to happen? Anybody? It's going to get run over. Okay, it's gotten run over twice in the past 6 months or so, right? So Sunday morning, I've come in. There's water gushing down the road. I have to fix this because we have church coming. So I've got to stop what I'm doing. I've got to drive down to Lowe's. I've got to get parts. I've got to fix the entire water system. Okay. So I finally got tired of this. And I said, whoever put that in was brain dead. And what's happened is there's a dumpster at the restaurant right next door. And so I know what happens is the guy that picks up the dumpster picks it up and smashes the thing. But what I did is I built a box around it. And somebody ran into the box and broke that and then smashed the backflow preventer again. This is expensive. I mean, the water is very expensive. It's running all night long, 24 hours. If it happens on, say, Friday, it's going to run for 2 days. That's going to be $1,000 of water, plus repairing the backflow preventer. Okay, so I don't want a box anymore. I called a plumber and I said, I would like the backflow preventer put up against the building. Just tack it to the building. And instead of doing that, they broke out the concrete and they put in what's called a double check valve backflow preventer. It's all underground. Okay. Now, here's a question for you. What do you think a double flow, double check valve backflow preventer would cost? It's a 3/4 inch valve. It's about this long, made of brass. It's about $150. Okay. It's not expensive. And then you've got 2 guys that are working for 2.5 hours. Okay, so you figure their labor, they're going to get paid. We'll just say $100 for the 2 of them for 2.5 hours, $50, $25 each, something like that. Okay, and then of course they've got their tools and all this. And you would figure that a job like that, if I was to do it, not getting paid, it would probably be a $200 job. They charged $1,779. Okay, God. Now that's fine. That's, to me, that's fine. Why would I not complain about that?
I don't know.
Well, the reason why is because they are the ones with the equipment, they are the ones with the expertise, and they are the ones that have to deal with Sarasota County getting the permitting and all that. If you go down to Sarasota County and you get a permit, what do you think is going to happen? You'll be there for hours and hours because all contractors get priority. And they walk in, they get their stuff, and they leave. You, if you go down to get your own permit, will be there maybe a whole day. So you are paying for the convenience and the knowledge base of those people. And that didn't bother me, okay?
What about the responsibility of the people that own the building here?
We own the building here. This is our building.
Oh.
This is privately owned.
Oh.
Yeah, and it doesn't bother me at all. That doesn't bother me at all. But I was thinking about that in the church setting. There is a value that you assign to a preacher. There is a value that you assign to, and everybody's different. Some people don't give anything to a church. Okay, some people will give their time. They'll come in, and Burke always used to come in and vacuum. He said, I want to do that for the church. He bought the vacuum cleaner. He was here every Thursday and he just wanted to do it. Okay, we got different people that do different things. If there's a millionaire, he might give us $1 million. If there's somebody that makes $300 a week, they might give 20 cents. Everybody's different. Okay, but there is a value that you assign, even if it's just you attending the church. That is a value that you've assigned because your time has value to you. You could be out watching TV or something. So everybody has something that they're doing. Okay, my thing is, we've never asked for anything at this church because if we do, then we are imposing a value on you that does not belong to you. You are the one that has to say, this church means this much to me. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make any difference to me. But to say that they suppose that godliness is a means of gain, what are they doing? They're putting a value on themselves for others to meet. And that, to me, is not the way to run a church. And I was thinking about that while those guys were working. I'm signing those, they've got these things now where you sign instead of paper. And they're very hard because signing this way is not the same as signing this way. So my signature doesn't look at all like it would if I normally signed it. But I wasn't at all bothered by that price. Now, if it was $5,000, I'd be a little upset because I know what the value of their time and what their expertise and of going down to the county is worth, okay? And I also know that because I was in the business, and some people would do that. They'd say, well, that's a $5,000 job. You know about that from a week ago. We won't talk about what, but he was given a quote on something for, it was $5,000, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and I said, that is insane. I said, they're ripping you off in advance. So I gave him something else, and he got 20% of that cost.
Yeah,
and
$1,000.
yeah, it was 1,000 instead of 5.
Well,
And
he just got me for $2,600 last month. So.
Okay, well, was it of equal value, or did you get ripped
No,
off?
it had to be done,
Oh, okay, well, there you go.
but it was the Schedule 40 all the way down to the sewer.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
So-
yours, yeah. And, if you had told me, I would have ran that for you, because I've run sewer lines a million
Good
times.
thing they were involved because
Comcast cable, right through it.
they bored through my pipe, and that's what caused the whole damage. To
I
the
hope they
cable.
pay you back for that.
They do.
Yeah. Okay.
But I was just the whole thing was.
It's just very. What he's
Oh.
saying is that they can't hear him online, but he's got, you got a sewer pipe that leaves your house. His is made of plastic, polyvinyl chloride plastic, and it goes out, and he's been having sewer troubles, and he couldn't figure out why. And when the plumbers came out to replace the line, they found that Comcast had bored their line right through his sewer. Well, when something like that happens, then everything else grabs onto it, and pretty soon you got a big glob there, and nothing can get by. So anyway, once again, suppose that godliness is a means of gain. A church should never say we are doing this for gain. I just don't agree with that premise. Every person here and every person online and every person that comes on Sunday morning has to determine what the church is worth to them. And if it's not worth anything to them other than sitting here on Sunday morning, that is their prerogative. And I'm not going to question them. We have Mormons. We have Mormons in America, and I met a Mormon that told me that they actually come by their house and they check their financial records, what they make, how much they make, if they get bonuses, and why aren't they giving according to that number. Can you imagine that? That's insane. But this is, suppose that godliness is a means of gain. Those guys out there were just doing their job. They didn't suppose that plumbing is a means of gain. It's their employment. Okay? If they were like the people that came by and just says, okay, I'm going to charge you $5,000 for this, that would be plumbing for a means of gain. They're only looking out for themselves and not for proper customer service. Okay? So I'm trying to use a real life example so you understand the premise. There is not something that should be assigned to the value of a church by the church itself. Ever. Okay? Now, if church needs a new roof, he can say, we need a new roof and we don't have enough money for it. There's nothing wrong with that. You're asking for something that is a need in the church. If you start saying to everybody, I need everybody in here to give $100 for the roof on the church, that's a problem because some people cannot give it and some people can give more. So you have to just, you have to balance things out, but you should never look at the meeting of the saints as a means of financial gain, ever. Okay, now to analyze this, to grasp the meaning of those words, all one needs to do is think of modern day here. Oh yeah, prosperity gospel preachers. They live lavishly, they have expensive cars, they have planes, they have large houses, but more. They teach that by giving them your money, you too will
Be rich.
You'll be rich. You'll prosper and become wealthy. That's what they teach. Okay? I have seen people many times in the projects. Tom can avow to this. We'll walk into their house to pray with them. I don't like going into people's houses, but some of them will say, please come in. And they will have the TV going, and they will have somebody on TV saying, if you send a seed offering, blah, blah, blah. And you can hear them saying that, right? They're telling them. And these people are sitting there in squalor, being asked to send money, and they do. You'll go in and you'll see the little stupid prayer towel that they were right in the house. They had to send them money to get that thing. Or the holy anointing water. We've seen all of this down there. These people don't have enough money to pay anything. And yet they're out there sending money to a preacher because the preacher tells them that they're going to get wealthy. How are you going to get wealthy living in the projects, living off the government? It's not going to it'll never happen. But there's no thinking because they trust the religious figure on the TV. They're not going beyond their own circumstances to think, well, that's not possible. They just trust these people. So here it is. Jesus becomes to them a cosmic ATM machine. Put money in, money will come out. But with that interest added too. When someone has attained wealth, it is attributed to godliness. I've seen people actually have this attitude. Somebody is wealthy and they say, well, he must be very intelligent. Okay, I've heard that my whole life. That person must be really intelligent because he's very wealthy. Or that person must be very religious because he's wealthy. okay? And they're ascribing the money that they have sent to that guy, along with a million other dupes, to him being a religious person. He must be the epitome of religion because he's got a big house. There's no thinking going on in their heads.
When you mentioned prosperity gospel, I thought it's not probably that famous, is it? But then I just looked up Lifeway Research 2022. There's an insane growth. It's like an infection. 52% of all Protestant churchgoers believe that if they give more money to the church, God will bless them more.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that thinking?
That's up 24% since 2017. It's like doubled.
That is 52% of the people that have never read the Bible. They've never opened the pages of Bible, and they sit there and they listen to these people, and they believe that by giving that church more money, they're going to get wealthy.
I bet that same percentage thinks they can lose their salvation.
I bet you. That's right. What he said is he bets that same percentage believes they can lose their salvation. Otherwise, why give to the church? You know? But when they're telling you that they control your destiny, you're going to be more willing to give.
And it gets even worse. 76%, that's 3 in every 4 churchgoers, think that God wants you to be prosper financially.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that are people I've gone to school with, people I've grown up with, people in my neighborhood that have exactly that attitude.
Prosperity consciousness.
Yeah.
They teach.
Yeah, absolutely. They think that if God is happy with them, and that's exactly what about the Pharisees, right? That's exactly what Jesus condemns them for, is believing people would say, well, if they can't be saved, then who can be saved? And he's talking about the wealthy. And he's giving them exactly the opposite. And they're saying, well, who can be saved then? Well, it's impossible with man, but with God, all things are possible. A wealthy person can be saved. He just has to have his priority in the right place, not on his money.
I didn't expect such high. I thought it was maybe 10%,
No,
maybe 15%
no.
of Christians.
And in Africa, it's even a higher percent.
Wow.
The richest church, oh, you looked that up one time. I said that during church one time, is, some of the richest churches in the world are in Africa. I mean, these people literally have 30 and 50 and $100 million in the bank. And their people don't have that much, to feed themselves. How can it be? But that's the way it is. Anyway, God is a cosmic ATM. The more godly a person is, the more gain they have. Paul says to Timothy that from such withdraw yourself. If people would simply pick this book up, if they would read this book and they would apply it to their lives, there would not be one prosperity church in America. And yet 52% of the people, and of them, 74% think that if they are wealthy, that they're pleasing to God. God has specially granted them favor. That's a real problem in this world, but whatever. I know what makes a person wealthy, all right? Early to bed, early to rise makes a person healthy, wealthy, and wise, okay? Yay. I get up at 3:30 every morning. I go to bed early every single day, and I am healthy, and the other two I don't know. Okay, maybe someday it's coming. I'm still trusting Ben's axioms, okay? So anyway, no, I'm kidding. But yeah, you know what will make a person wealthy is sticking to it, willing to make mistakes in the process. Rush Limbaugh, who made... the last contract he got before he died was like for $225 million. That's $250 million, right? He said, I've been fired from so many jobs, I can't remember them all. I just kept trying, and finally it fit. And that's what you have to do. With me, I'm never going to get wealthy cleaning toilets at 7-Eleven and at the mall every day, but I have enough to pay the bills, okay? And then we have the church, and it's doing its thing right now, and I'm very happy about that. But I'm not going to tell you that you will be blessed by God if you give this church something. That's not something you will ever hear from my lips, and if you do, turn off the YouTube or walk out the door, because I have lost my bonkers. It is untrue. It is absolutely false. Paul is saying that Timothy, and indeed all Christians, are to have nothing to do with such people. We are to withdraw from them, not be a party to their depraved state of mind, and not support their views at all. They are to be exposed and shown for the frauds that they are. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen. You go into these churches and there's nobody in the church that calls them out. There are, Ministry Watch. You can go online, type in Ministry Watch, and you can subscribe to get their daily or whatever updates. I usually get 1 or 2 emails a day. And they will identify bad things going on in the church. Unfortunately, most of the emails I get, and it makes me sick, I've gotten 3 in the past 3 days where some preacher or some person in the church has done something sexually depraved to a child or to somebody in the congregation. I see that now every day because Ministry Watch sends them on. But they do highlight churches that are, abusing finances, that are cheating and doing this and that. Once in a while, you'll see that as well. And I've ever since somebody sent me the link to that, I've been trying to add that into the prophecy update on Sunday, so people know what's going on in the church. But there are not a lot of people out there that are exposing these things. It's an infection. It's running rampant, as he just showed, and it's it has nothing to do with the Bible. Why are you in a church that is not? This is the point of the church. This book is the point of our meeting together, because this book tells us about Jesus. This book tells us about Jesus, who is God, who is the Son of the Father. Okay? That's who we're supposed to be worshiping. We're not supposed to be talking about these side issues, the gay and lesbian agenda. We're not supposed to be talking about BLM in churches. And, you can mention it as something that shouldn't be done in society, but that's not what the focus of the church is. The focus is to learn this word so that we can have a closer relationship with Jesus, so that we can have a better understanding of who God is and what we are accountable for and who we are accountable to. Okay, that's the purpose of it. If that's not being done, I don't understand why anybody would go to that church. I don't understand it, but that's what people are doing. And it's because they're not reading the Bible, and like I said, they're processing whatever the pastor says. He's on a stage, okay? Once somebody is on a stage, he's already elevated in people's minds, okay? He's an authority figure. We've got all these people in the church, and therefore he must be telling the truth. And so they just listen, and they don't verify, okay? What is the old saying? Trust, but verify, okay? When you put your money in a bank account, or not a bank account, somebody that deals with money, you can give them a level of trust, but verify. If you don't do that, he's probably going to walk away with your money. Okay? Life application. Godliness has nothing. It has absolutely nothing to do with one's bank account. And it cannot be said that a godly person will find material gain in this world. Maybe one of the things, this just came to mind, one of the things that may have got me thinking about them and their work, one of them looked exactly like Ray. He'll be back here soon, and I asked him, what's your last name? And he told me it wasn't Ray's last name, but he could have been his twin brother. He was a little shorter and stockier, but his face, the way he wears his beard, everything could have been his twin brother. And anyway, what was my point about that? This guy's a plumber, and I was telling him about Ray over in Papua New Guinea. Ray is not a rich guy, right? He's dependent on other people for his living. He's got to come back and he's got to ask for money for the people that have died or that have lost their jobs or, have moved and they've lost touch. He's got to come back every year or two and he's got to say, we need support. We can't talk to these people over in this country unless you support us. Okay? So he's not somebody, he's as godly of a person as I know. He's a very, very godly person. His wife is. They're raising their children properly. Okay? And I've known Ray since he was a young guy. Okay? He's grown up wanting to serve the Lord. He's now a young man and he's out serving the Lord. And he's not a rich person. How can you equate wealth with godliness? Okay? I don't understand that, but people do it. To even hint at this is a complete departure from the truth of Scripture. The prosperity gospel, which has enriched many TV evangelists and others of their ilk, is a poisonous lie, which is not to be tolerated by those who call themselves followers of Christ. You should not tolerate that type of an attitude. And like I said, I've got friends that I've gone to school with. I grew up with these people. I went surfing with them. I spent many, Mom would know half of them. right? They come over the house and they're all stinky from out being surfing. You take off your wetsuit, and when you take off a wetsuit, you stink. And we're all sitting around there having a good time afterward. She knows these people, and here they're going to churches that are just. I think, why would you do that? Why would you go to a church like that? I grew up with you. We had the same work ethic. We had the same worldview. And now it's all about how I can get more wealthy. I don't know.
I'm so shocked about this percentage. That means that within. This is not just Christianity as a whole. This was a survey about Protestant church.
Yeah.
It's not even the.
No, it's just Protestants.
It's just Protestant. That's gonna rot the church from the inside. If this is the mentality, if this is just for the gain.
Yeah.
It's the mindset of people wanting more and more.
And that's, a lot of that has to do with the entitlement society in America. Okay. But you can't say that is the only factor, because in Africa they have these churches. So I don't know. I'm not sure what it is that prompts. Maybe it's just the desire to be rich. You play the lotto just because you think, maybe I'll win. You go to church and the guy tells you something. Maybe it's true. I don't know. I've never sat down and thought this through, but those are shocking numbers, especially if it's gone up 24% since 2017.
In just 5-6 years.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking that means
7.
That, yeah,
2017, 2024, that's 7 years. I'm just being a jerk. Yeah, anyway.
That means basically 3 out of 4 Christians I meet or Protestant church are going to have this
attitude
outside of this church.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Yeah, Mom is pretty well. She's a worldly person, so okay. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. It's a real problem, and I don't know when I typed this. 1 Timothy. It was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And it was
still lower. It's doubled almost. That means it's actually going into it. My mind, as you're reading this now, I'm thinking, okay, I need to now think this through. Like when I meet non-believers, it's the gospel message. But now when I meet believers, is maybe to somehow to direct them to the Word of God.
Yeah,
and against
always.
this.
And you're good at that anyway. You are always
I
talking
didn't know
about
this was a problem.
It's a terrible problem. And you know what that means? You know what that means if it's gone up that much in the past 7 years? It means nobody reads my commentaries. Anyway, let's go on. 6:6.
Oh, 6:6. But godliness with contentment is great gain.
Oh, see? Just the opposite. Think it through. But godliness with contentment is great gain. All right. The words now given by Paul show a complete contrast to what he has just written concerning those who teach ungodly doctrine. In those verses, he described the perverse nature and teaching of those people, and then he said that they suppose that godliness is a means of gain. But Paul teaches otherwise by saying that godliness with contentment is great gain. Okay, now I will say this. I have a house. I've got a car. I've got, the things that you need to have to function properly in a society. All right, and I will be at the house and I'll think, gee, I want to plant a plant in that spot. Won't that look nice? Okay, that doesn't mean that I'm not content. That just means that I want to do something productive with my time and with the surroundings that I live in. Okay, so when you think of the word contentment, sometimes you might think of Charlie Garrett because I'm always out doing something. He must not be content. I'm as content as any person I know in what I'm doing. Every Monday of my life, I do the same thing. Every Tuesday of my life, I do the same thing. Just because I'm doing a lot of other things throughout the week doesn't mean that I'm not content. And so I'm trying to equate that so you may think the same thing. Well, I'm not really content. I'm always wanting to do something different, or I'm wanting to, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so let me give the analysis now. Don't think that what you are doing doesn't mean you're not content. What he's saying is your station in life. And my station in life is Mondays are sermon typing, Tuesdays are... My station in life is content. Tom Alley, I will bet, and I'm not going to ask him to give an answer to this, but I bet he is content with his life. I know certainly on Saturday you're very content, okay? And so you are the one that has to evaluate your own place of contentment. But if you are... whatever your station is, whether you're rich or you're poor, whether you're single or married, if you are content in your state, then that is a good thing. Okay, so here, let's see how I analyze this. The false, ungodly teachers looked at godliness resulting in material gain and worldly wealth. But Paul shows that instead, true gain for the godly is an internal thing. That is exactly what I was trying to, I type these in the morning when I don't have other things on my mind. That is exactly what I was trying to say. My work week is an internal thing. It's something that drives me. Every single day, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I love I call it a comfortable rut. I'm in a rut that never changes, and I love it. Okay? And so it's an internal thing. It is contentment. Okay, some people think that contentment is, I'm going to get a Ferrari, and that's going to make me content. Or I'm going to get a new wife, and that's going to make me content. We're going to see that in Malachi chapter 2, I think it is. The issue with divorce. I think it's Malachi chapter 2. Why do people do that? What is it that prompts them to do that? Okay, let's see here. The false ungodly teachers, I read that, but Paul shows that true gain is found internally. The word he chooses is found only here, and in 2 Corinthians 9, verse 8, it speaks of self-sufficiency. It is used of the spirit-filled believer in Christ. Instead of pursuing supposed godliness in order to gain more and more material wealth, the faithful, godly Christian has all he needs through the indwelling of the Spirit of Christ. Okay, now, self-sufficiency all by itself is a great thing. Okay, and so I might as well back up and I might as well say that I've known people that were not Christians in my life. I've lived in other countries, and I know people that probably aren't Christians here in America, but they're very self-sufficient. And they're always content. I don't know if you know people like that, but people that are self-sufficient are people that are content. They're not living off of anybody. They're not striving for anything more than they have. And what they do have, if they want, they want to go out and buy a new car, what do they do? They'll go out and they'll think, okay, I need to just evaluate how to work that into my schedule so I can earn this new car. Self-sufficiency all by itself is a nice thing for people to have. Okay, you add in that to your Christian walk. I'm self-sufficient. I'm not relying on other people. I'm able to do my own thing. I can do it well, and I can do it to the glory of God. That is a really nice place to be. Okay, self-sufficiency. Once again, it is used of the spirit-filled believer in Christ. Instead of pursuing supposed godliness in order to gain more and more wealth, the faithful, godly Christian has all he needs through the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of Christ. Okay, so you have to decide, what is it that makes you content? What is it that makes you happy? All right, we found out about contentment twice in the past month. Okay, we have all this stuff that we've accumulated over the years. And a lot of, most people know this if they've come to my house. They'll say, where'd you get that? And I'll say, well, I found that on the side of the road in 1985 in Japan, right? Almost everything in our house came from the side of the road. I call Wednesday shopping day because that's when the garbage goes out. And I was driving down the road about a year and a half ago, and there was a guitar case on the side of the road. And I thought, well, maybe somebody needs a guitar case. So I got it and I threw it in the back of the car. I literally just chucked it. And I kept driving on. It was out there with all the other garbage. And when I got to the mall, I opened it up and there was a brand new guitar with the receipt still in it. Somebody probably got it for his kid and the kid just never even opened it. Okay. And so instead of leaving it out or giving it to somebody, they just threw it away. Okay. And so I gave it to my daughter. This brand new, and I went online. It was like a $140 guitar. It was a beautiful thing. Anyway, so he's got he can take pictures of Venus with a telescope. Right? Where did that come from? Shopping day, right? I found this and I don't need a telescope.
We still use it.
I know you do.
Kids
It was,
in the neighborhood.
that was like a $450 telescope, and it was sitting in the garbage, right? So, but almost my whole life is from that. Why? Because I'm content. I don't need these things, but I got all this stuff around the house, and what happened? We got flooded twice in 10 days. And a lot of that stuff just got chucked right out the door. And I wasn't like, it didn't bother me. I'm content with what we have, and when we don't have something, I'm okay with that too. All right, but you find out what is of value when you have a flood. I can assure you that. And the people in North Carolina, their entire houses were swept away. We still at least have a house to sleep in, well, for now, until the county takes it away, whatever. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just, whatever. be content. Don't let your eyes lust after all the things that you could have. If you driving down the road and you find something that pleases you, pick it up. But don't feel like I just got to have this and I got to have this and I got to have this. But Sarasota, Florida is the best place in the world to go shopping on Wednesday morning. Jim Dwyer will tell you, he rides his bike 12, 50 miles a day. I don't know if he still does anymore or not. But he would say there are some houses every 6 months, they would change all the stuff in there every 6 months. And they'd take all of this stuff, tens of thousands of dollars of furniture and stuff, and they just pile it up outside for garbage day. You could go down, I don't know. That's not content people. Those are people that are trying to buy satisfaction, and you'll never be content that way. Anyway, in this, living for Christ and being self-sufficient, in this there is self-satisfaction. But it is based on possessing everything necessary because of what Christ has done, and also because of what Christ grants us. Okay, this lady from Southern Evangelical Seminary messaged me this week. Okay, she must be new and in a new job, and she sent me an email and she said, "Hello, Mr. Garrett. We're checking our email list to make sure this is still your address." And I said, "Yes, this is my address." I said, "I'm so happy that it didn't get washed away with the 2 hurricanes that flooded our house at the beginning of the month." I said I was smart enough to put it up on the mantle so that I didn't lose my email address. And I said, "And I'm so happy to know Jesus." And she came back and she said, "I'm so glad that you're not worried about your stuff." But it was just a little back and forth we had. But what are you going to do? We got Jesus. What else do you need? All the stuff that got washed out the door, and I told her this, I said, Jesus offers us so much more. This is just a temporary walk on the way to glory, and it's all just stuff, okay? So anyway, let's see here. It's what Christ grants us. Thus, it is a sufficiency which is valid in times of difficulty and suffering, as well as in times of prosperity and abundance. The people in those prosperity churches would not feel that way. They would only feel that way if it was a time of prosperity and abundance. If they are lacking, they will. If their thought about prosperity is true, and they lose everything, say in a flood, or if they lose everything in a financial bad decision, what are their thoughts going to be?
Oh God, I'm not doing right with God. Or
That's
God
exactly right.
me.
All of a sudden, their question, and it's funny because I'll be talking about almost the same thing at the beginning of Malachi on Sunday. The introduction kind of addresses the same issue. Those people, because they're in these prosperity churches and they think that that's what's getting them happy, when all of a sudden their prosperity goes away, God must hate me. God, I must not be doing something right, or I need to give more. Whatever they're thinking, it is not biblically centered. Why? Because they don't know the Bible and they don't have a proper relationship with the Lord. So I know you guys are always directing people to the Word, but that's something maybe you can tweak now to include that.
Yeah, I have to think about this because I didn't know this is such a big thing.
Oh, terrible.
And I get it. Sometimes when I buy something, I feel good about it, but it's only temporary. Then you look at it again and again, and it just goes away. It's so short-lived.
It's short-lived,
and never give you contentment.
I know that he got a nice Ford truck, okay? And I told him, don't buy a Ford truck. And so anyway, he bought a Ford truck. And then yesterday, we had to go to the mall to meet somebody for a couple minutes and help him down at the mall. And I said, let's take my car. And he says, okay, I've never driven that. And I said, well, then you drive it. And he got in it and he realized he shouldn't have bought a Ford truck after all. So see, it's just temporary and it only satisfies for a while. And now you found something better. He was drooling over that.
He told me.
Oh, did he? That really shows you
likes
that.
it. He told me he
It's a
likes
great, I tell you what, Don, I better not say any names here, but the people that helped us through that one, what a blessing. I'm so thankful. Anyway, yeah, if you want just a really nice truck. And that's why I said the one that I had, it was a 2013. And I really just wanted to go out with that truck. Unfortunately, it got flooded, but I was content with that. It had roll down windows and it was just, that's all I need. And now I've got these things, and I got to pull this, and I end up pulling the wrong one, and something locks back there, or I pull this one up, and the window turns, and I'm like, I don't know, all these buttons nowadays.
And the Ford truck was new, and after half a year, the transmission went out.
And what did
But
I tell you?
but
Before,
I'm content.
what did I tell you before you bought that about American transmissions? Didn't I? I warned him. I said, you buy an American car.
But I wanted American truck.
Yeah, well, you got your American truck. Listen, I will say this, and this has nothing to do with the Bible, but it is true. I work at the mall, and I will be picking up garbage and taking out the garbage and stuff. And cars go by from 7-Eleven through the mall before the mall opens every day because it's just a quick way of getting out. And I can tell if it's an American or a foreign car by the transmission. Especially when they start making bad noises, I will turn around, I'll say, I know that is an American car. I've never been wrong. I'm always right. I do not trust American transmissions as far as I could throw them, and they're heavy. I couldn't throw one 2 feet. So buy your American, go ahead. I know there are people that are very mad at me right now online saying, I'm never listening to him again, but it's true.
Your truck, though, is made in America.
Well, it is, but it's from Japanese technology. So, yeah. The American technology, they just don't...
Well, the thing with the Ford, it wasn't a one-time thing. Apparently, there is a big thing with transmissions that is bad.
I know, that's what I told you.
They said the engineers just did something bad, and they're trying to start a class suit because I was without a truck for a month. I know they fixed it, it's warranty, but without a month.
I told you. I said the transmission would go bad, and I was right.
But
So.
I am content.
He's content. Okay, yeah, because he got a nice rental car in the process. Okay, where were we? Life application. If one is looking for contentment in worldly possessions, his contentment will end with the next stock market crash, the burning down of his house, or in the termination of his employment. Such times of trouble easily lead to extreme depression or even a leap out of the 14th floor of a building. But when one's hope and trust is in Christ, the Christian can look beyond the temporary and see the eternal promises which yet lie ahead. Where is your hope? Where is your contentment? Where is your sufficiency? If you don't say, my hope is in Jesus, I am content in Christ, and he is all sufficient for me, you have a problem. You have a problem, and it is your problem to deal with. You need to put Jesus first. And, I just hope that people will be willing to do that. If you are putting your trust in money, even if it's supposedly a Christian type of teaching, you got the wrong priority. You are not trusting in the sufficiency of Christ. You're trusting in the sufficiency of what Christ can give you. Not what he has given you, but what he can give you. And if he can give it to you, he can take it away. Okay? Job can tell you all about that one. Talking about Job, verse 6-7. Go ahead.
Oh, wow. This one's been on my mind every day for the last 2 weeks. And you
No.
know why.
No, why?
Oh,
Hang
wait,
on.
Job 6-7? No.
Well, no,
Timothy.
Timothy
Yeah.
6-7,
Yeah.
and Job I'm going to read.
Oh, okay. Now or after me?
No, you.
Okay. 1 Timothy 6:7. Next verse. For we brought nothing into the world, and we cannot take anything out of the world.
Okay, this one says, for we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. Okay, the words of this verse carry a similar thought to that of Job 1:21. This is a verse that I have memorized. I won't read it from memory because I might want to read the context around it, but it is a verse that I tell people all the time. Some people, I had one person get mad at me because I said it to her quite a few times, and she finally just got mad at me for, you are the one with the problem. Okay, if your eyes are on your stuff, you are the problem, and you have the problem. Okay, I just quote this because it's the truth. Let me see here. I'm not going to read the whole chapter because it's just too long, but let's see here. Then Job, I'm going to go back to verse 20. Then Job arose. He's just gotten all kinds of bad reports. He's gotten his family is dead, his crops have burned, his servants are dead, everything's taken away. I paraphrase that. Some of those things didn't happen. I'm just saying he had everything in his life is calamity. Okay? Then Job arose, tore his robe, shaved his head, and he fell to the ground and worshipped. And he said, here it is, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. I didn't come in with anything. I ain't taking anything out. Okay? The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this, Job did not sin nor charge God with wrong. I guarantee you, these prosperity people, when they lose everything, will either say, I'm not in God's favor, or they're going to say, God did me wrong. It's going to be one of the two. That's what's going to be on their mind. They are going to charge the Almighty with wrongdoing. Okay? That's a very sad place to be, but that's what churches in America and around the world have done to their people. All because it goes back to what I said 2 verses ago. They believe that godliness is a means of gain. Okay? All right. So, Job 121. Solomon also states something akin to this thought in Ecclesiastes 5. I'm not remembering what he said there, 5:13 through 17. So let me find that. And Ecclesiastes, give me just 1 second here. Proverbs.
I've seen grievous evil under the sun.
It might
well
be.
hoarded to the harm of its owner.
That might be it. That
Well,
would be very.
lost to
Is that what you were thinking? 5.
Just asking what chapter?
5:13 through 17. Yes, that's it. There is a severe evil which I've seen under the sun. Riches kept for their owner to his hurt, but those riches perish through misfortune. When he begets a son, there is nothing in his hand. As he came from his mother's womb naked, he shall return to go as he came, and he shall take nothing from his labor, which he may carry away in his hand. And this also is a severe evil, just exactly as he came, so he shall go. And what profit has he who has labored for the wind? All his days he also eats in darkness, and he has much sorrow and sickness and anger. Okay? Yeah, exactly. Very good. I'd forgotten that was on my mind at this time, but there's an understanding that we all came into the world with nothing but our physical bodies attached to the soul which animates us. Nobody would dispute that. Things like time, place, family, and so forth accompanied our birth, but those things are not physical in nature. Paul is speaking of material gain in these verses. And there was nothing material which accompanied us at our birth. Nothing. There was not one thing that we had in our hand when we came out. Okay? Except in Jacob's case, he came out with Esau's heel in his hand. But okay. Anyway, as we had nothing material with us that the world didn't have before our coming, no such thing was introduced into it at that time. In like manner, there will be nothing lacking from the material world when we depart. Everything we accumulated will remain behind. The Egyptian pharaohs seemed to think otherwise, and they stored up vast amount of things to take with them on their journey to the afterlife. Other cultures and individuals have attempted to do this as well. The Chinese place, they haven't, excavated. There's a whole mountain that was built around one of the kings or emperors, whatever they call them, in China. And it has a river of mercury that flows under this thing. And like I say, they haven't excavated 99% of it, but they know some of the things there. And they believe that it is a tomb for this great emperor so that he would have everything he ever needs for all of eternity in this mountain of stuff. Okay? And, it ain't going to happen, folks. But anyway, that's kind of the same idea as the pharaohs. It's also the idea you dig up people in Scandinavia or other places and they've got horses buried with them. They've got their wives that they know were alive when they were buried with them. They've got all this jewelry that they put on them. They're going to take it with them. And they're not taking anything. It's just getting put in the ground, and someday somebody's going to find it and say, hey, let's put this in the museum. It didn't go with them. So anyway, I did see, I think I posted it on the CG report. It was kind of neat, is there was a lady that was buried 16 years old in like Croatia or Slovakia, one of these, the places where the vampires are. Anyway, they thought she was a vampire. So did you see the article? They thought she was a vampire. So when they buried her, they put a scythe over her neck. Yeah, to make sure she wouldn't get up and come back to life. Anyway, so people have funny ideas about the afterlife, but when you go into the hole, you ain't coming out of there until Jesus says so. All right. Other than that, it's not going to happen.
This thing is not only like the contentment, and now nothing we can take from this world, and I mean nothing we brought in, nothing we can take it. I'm thinking not only is it about what we get here in this world we can take, but also our time that goes into it. In the past 2 weeks, we bought a house, like
Yeah.
we mentioned it before, 2 weeks ago, but we bought it as is. And the lady that passed away, who lived there, her children sold it as is. They took some personal stuff, but most of it is still there. And so Rhoda and I have been going through the stuff and trying to see what is good enough for just to give people, what just need to be thrown away. And it is so much stuff. We carried out a truckload of stuff to Goodwill the other day, and I'm going, and it's so sad because I'm thinking,
That was what.
this took so much time to collect.
That's
all
right.
the collectibles, all the antiques, collectibles, the things from years ago, from 50, 40, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and even love letters have shown us. We didn't read them, but I'm seeing just like, from husband to wife, they're both passed away. I'm thinking, but it's all stuff collected over such a long time. I'm thinking, wow, am
That's
I
the
doing the same thing? Because when I
Yeah.
die, I can't take any of this. So what's the point of this unless this very item serves a purpose for the kingdom of God?
Yeah.
If that's not serving that purpose, if that's not serving this chair for people to sit on when they come and we share a meal together to preach the gospel, then it's useless because I can't take it, and it's just taking my time to collect it or put it somewhere. Every night I've been wrote it. This is so sad. So sad.
Yeah. And you got to think, if she didn't know Jesus, and I have no idea, but if she didn't, that's the sum of her life right there. And now somebody's parceling it out. They're sending it out to the four winds or throwing it in the garbage or whatever.
Yeah, I've known this verse, but it's never been so vivid in front of my eyes. Like, wow, this is somebody's life. This is an entire life, and they didn't know they're gonna pass away. Brain cancer, 2 weeks, they were gone. So
Wow.
just,
Wow,
just
how
like this.
sad. Yep, there you go. Well, let's see. Oh, yeah. Well, back to the tombs. Other cultures and individuals that have attempted to do this as well. And I don't know her. Maybe she was trying to do that too. I don't know. And yet, when their tombs are discovered, all that stuff is still there. As Paul says, it is certain that we can carry nothing out. When our ticket is punched, the only thing the only thing going on that ride is the soul, nothing else. Okay, even our physical bodies don't go along. Paul's point in saying this is to demonstrate that we should be content with the lives we live. In the coming verse, he will show where contentment should rest. Okay, and it's sad. I mean, if you think about it, how people cling to this world, and I mentioned this one before, but what a dumb bumper sticker. He who dies with the most dies happiest or dies best or something. And then there are people that you ask them, multi-millionaire, maybe billionaire, and they say, how much money do you have? And he says, well, I just wish I had $1 for every dollar I had. Or, they give answers like that would make them happy. They're already worth billions, and I think that was Forbes or one of those people. I wish I had $1 for every dollar I had. It's not going to do you any good. Not going to do you any good at all. Life application. If you are storing up worldly wealth in anticipation of being ahead of others when you die, you haven't thought things through very well. In fact, your reasoning is completely lacking any sense at all. The most you can do is save up things which will be passed on to others after your death. But what you have treasured up will not profit you a bit when you pass on. That's what Solomon was speaking about. Think on this and be gracious, and yet be wise and discerning during this life with the fruit of your labors. Okay? We're all going to be dying someday. We're all going to be evaluated for the lives we're living right now and for what we're going to do in the future until the day we die. Okay? That's a certainty. If you believe in God, you've got to believe that that's true. And so you have to think, what am I doing with the life that I've been given? Is it just stuff? Okay. And like I said, if that flooding had been worse, our house would have just gone out to Sarasota Bay completely. There'd be nothing left there. And so the stuff that's still in the house, it shows you the importance of what you have. Okay? Shows you the importance of it.
Look along the side of the road and how quickly it just went there.
Yeah.
I mean, who's trying to save much of anything?
Anything. It's all been out by the road. And now we have a testament to this. Okay? I pass by it, not every day, but I pass by it a couple times a week. The garbage pile that's at the corner of US 41 and Stickney Point Road now. That's the stuff that was flooded on Siesta Key. It is now 4 mountains, literally 4 mountains of people's lives. Every time I go by there, I say, all those lives. That's what I think. All of those lives. Everything that they had, oh, isn't this beautiful? My husband bought this for me. Or, I had a neighbor, I won't say which one, but one of my neighbors used to use this phrase, and it drove me absolutely crazy. Every time I'd hear it, I just want to just strangle her. She'd say, oh, isn't this stove to die for? And I'd think, die for the stove? I got to have it or I'll die. And she'd say it about everything. Like, isn't this swimming pool to die for? It just drove me. It drove me bonkers hearing that person say that. I think, why would you ever have that in your thought process? If you die, then you don't have the stove. Everything about it is just, it's ridiculous. But anyway, okay, we're on to 6-8. Oh, wait, did I finish that? Yeah, I did.
But if we have food and clothing, with these we will be content.
And having food and clothing, with these we shall be content. So very close. Okay, let's see here. Paul just cited the thought of writers like Job and Solomon, who noted that we brought nothing into this world, and we will not be carrying anything out when we finally kick the bucket. This is why we kick the bucket instead of carrying it along with us all full of stuff. As we are simply passing, I forgot I typed that anyway, as we are simply passing through without the hope of any material gain on the way out, then what we have in that regard is really not that important. Our walk here is a few short years, and our walk in the next life will be for all eternity. 1,000,000 years is not a scratch on the surface of what we can anticipate. With this in mind, he says, and having food and clothing, with these we shall be content. The Greek word translated as we shall be content indicates sufficiency, just like we were talking about 2 verses ago, sufficiency. Those things that are necessary for meeting our needs are sufficient for the conduct of our lives. The words food and clothing are intended as the meeting of those general needs, whatever they may be. Okay, so Paul isn't just saying food and clothing, that's it. It's just a way of generally saying what you need in life, the basics. Okay, food and clothing. We cannot do without food, and we should not do without clothing. Okay, I would agree with that. Food is a necessary thing to keep us physically fit, and clothing is a necessary thing to keep us morally covered. Okay, now I say that, and we have to remember that there are different values in different societies. Okay, and we don't want to, think that we, just because we are in this society, that this is how things should be. The Elizabethan or Victorian England, they had a different idea about how they could look, and they were completely covered like this, and they wore a bonnet, and they were and then you get the South Pacific Islands where the women wear hula skirts and nothing up top. Okay, and that's just the culture, and so we need to be careful that we don't make wrong judgments. We've got one person. Actually, I'll start with this thought, is if you go out to Siesta Beach, you are going to see people with almost nothing on. But you wouldn't normally see a person like that in, the mall downtown. Okay, so there are certain places where you can dress in certain ways. As a matter of fact, the Amish and the Mennonites that come here every year get that, because these girls come, they get off the bus or whatever, they take these like community buses. They won't drive themselves, so they have these people drive them down, and then they all go to the same places together all the time. Well, one of the places they go to is the beach. And so this big community bus that drove down from Ohio will stop right at Crescent Beach. And all these girls get off the bus, and they've got their bonnets on, and they've got their bag dresses on, and there's one that's blue and one that's green, and but they're all basically the same other than the colors. And as soon as they get off the bus and they walk to the beach, what do? Everything comes off, and they're wearing bikinis. So they get that. There is a time for certain things, and there are a time for not other things, okay? But I've been seeing, I've never really known this person before. I've heard her name, but I thought she was a country star, but apparently she's not, is Taylor Swift.
Oh.
She's on
Used to be a
stage.
country star.
What?
Used to be a country.
Oh, okay. Well, that's why I thought she was, but she's on stage wearing underwear constantly. I mean, she's on Mail Online every day, and I just scroll past it because I don't want to see it. But, you know, I'm like, that's not the place to wear your underwear. If you want to wear that, go out to the beach and, you know, but I'm just not getting things. And I just got done saying that there are different places and different cultures, but I don't get the need to do that. I'm not seeing it. If you want to do that, go sing on the beach. But anyway, that's the point I'm making about food is a necessary thing to keep us physically fit, and clothing is a necessary thing to keep us morally covered. Well, she's a singer. She's in front of 60,000 people or something, and she's wearing nothing. And so that's not a moral covering in that respect. If you're on the beach and you're wearing a bikini, there's nothing wrong with it because that's what you wear when you're on the beach. So I'm trying to process all this in my head, and I don't do it well, I guess. I don't understand the workings of the mind of the people in the world today. I just don't. Anyway, thus, if we have the things which are necessary for our physical lives and the things which are needed for our spiritual lives, we should be content, for they are sufficient for meeting our main needs. Medicine would fall under the food category, okay? That's one thing that, it's a necessary thing at times. You have to, unless you're in the church of, what is the church that doesn't take medicine? Not Scientology, Christian Science, I think is what it is. I think it's Christian Science. They don't take medicine, okay? And the Jehovah's Witnesses don't take certain medicines. And you know what? My argument with people like that, I even people will email me and they'll say, it's not good to take medicine, and we should trust in God in this and that. But listen, God gave us minds to use. And if there is a certain herb that will help your stomach, then take the herb, right? If there is a certain vine that they find in the Amazon rainforest that the people have taken and it takes care of their glaucoma, which they've found, then why wouldn't you do that, right? I mean, we have brains for a reason. God has given us certain things in the world for us to figure out. Okay, so I'm not one of these anti-medicine people at all. You won't hear me saying that. There are certain medicines I completely disagree with and certain supposed remedies that I disagree with. But anyway, I'm not anti-medicine at all. But it would go kind of under the food category and what Paul is saying here. The Bible would fall under our clothing category because it's a moral issue. All right. The first attends to our physical needs, the medicine. The second attends to our spiritual needs. Okay, it's the spiritual medicine. That's where we go. This is the apothecary for our souls. If we want to go there and we want to read it, and we're going to get our spiritual nourishment. Okay, and understanding what things are actually necessary to meet these needs, we can discover which things are actually superfluous in our lives. And you can also find that out very quickly by being flooded. Okay. That was superfluous after all. I really didn't need that, okay? And I'm not going to replace it. There are some things that I have bought to replace because they make life... Hot water heater goes a long way. I'm going to tell you that. Hot water heater goes a long way. It was, you got electrocuted by it, okay? I kept getting electrocuted days and days later. All the water was cleaned up. It was all dry, and I found out why. It's because the... inside of the hot water heater, they put that fiber, the stuff in your wall. What's it called?
Fiberglass.
Fiberglass. Okay, they put it in there as it stays wet, and so it was creating its own. What do you call it? Lack of ground.
Right.
And that's why we kept getting electrocuted. I mean, literally, I shocked myself so badly, I thought my heart was going to stop. It got so bad, and so I turned it off. I said, Hideko, don't go near that. Don't turn on that switch. So
somebody turned it on.
Well, yeah, when you were there. I'm saying later. You weren't as important. You were earlier on in the yeah.
Because Jose was there and he's like, man, you okay? And I'm standing for 3 seconds shaking.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. But no, at the time, I didn't know that was happening. That's why it was on. But then you said you got electrocuted, and then I needed it to have hot water that night, so I turned it on and I forgot to turn it back off. And so that's when I got myself. But I couldn't figure out, why is it doing this? It's because the internal was causing its own lack
Yeah.
of ground.
But I was content. I had food and clothing at the time.
And a good electric charge, so you were in good shape. Okay, anyway, let's see here. Yeah, it is those things that we need to not give great priority to, meaning the superfluous things. Oh, we got 3 minutes. Instead, if we have them, we can and should be grateful for them, like the hot water heater, but we should not let them consume who we are. Okay, life application. Tickets to a sporting event, a nice TV, lipstick, a new car. Such things are not a part of our necessary needs. They may make life fun, easier, more pleasing, and so on, but they add nothing of true value to our walk towards glory. Let us keep these things in mind and let us be attentive to the things that are truly important first. And then let us show gratitude for the extra blessings which have come our way. Okay, I have 2 minutes, and so I will tell you a quick story about needs. Okay, most of us have in our house a hot water heater. Okay, we have a hot water heater. And I know I've said this before, but it's such a wonderful story that I love to repeat it. There's a guy that was preaching, he's up in Atlanta, I think, and he was on TV on Saturday morning. This is like 15 years ago. And he was saying that when he was, Michael Youssef, anybody know Michael Youssef? Okay, he's a guy that, he used to come on TV and I'd turn him on when I was doing something. Anyway, he was talking about a guy that he went to seminary with. And the guy was from Fiji. And he said that they graduated and he had to get his friend to the airport to get back to Fiji. Okay? So, it's Michael Youssef's job to get him to Fiji, to the airport. And the guy said, well, I'm going to take a shower before we go. And he was in the shower. And he was in the shower. And it went on. And finally, Michael banged on the door. He said, hey, man, we got to go. He said, what are you doing? He said, you know what? I grew up in Fiji. I've never had a hot shower in my life until I came here. I'm going back to Fiji to minister to my people, and I will never take a hot shower again, ever. I want to enjoy my hot shower. That is somebody that knows how to serve the Lord. Okay, so we have things that are needs, and we have things that are extra. And the extra things we should thank the Lord for every single time. Okay, and I've always remembered that guy when I take a hot shower. Always. He's over in Fiji right now serving the Lord, ministering to people there while I'm taking a hot shower. That's a little humbling. Heavenly Father, thank you for the chance to come into your presence, and thank you for the chance to share in your word with people of God. And Lord, we got a great problem in this nation with unclear thinking about who you are and what you are there to do for us. And you've already done everything necessary for us. Anything else is just grace. And so help us not to presuppose that we should be given more grace by being wealthy or having a lot of things or nice things. We don't deserve anything at all. All we actually deserve is to be condemned. And instead you sent Jesus. And what more should we ask for in our lives? We just thank you for the blessings as they come and praise you when they get taken away because you gave them to us for a season. Lord, help us to have this attitude in all things. And we will be content with the knowledge that we have a heavenly home because of Jesus. So thank you for him, and we pray these things in his name. Amen. Okay, let me say goodbye to the folks. Let me back up the... you don't have to get up.
By the way, there's has a live bacteria in it. Do you want to try?
Live bacteria. No, because you've been live bacteriaing it also. And I don't want to get your live bacteria. No, I'm kidding. Okay, break. Back this up and we'll say goodbye to these folks online. All right, there we go. Okay, everybody, have a great, weekend. Have a great Friday, Saturday. We'll see you here Sunday. Be here, be square.
And don't get electrocuted by...
Don't get electrocuted by Charlie's hot water heater. All right, there we go. Okay, I got 2 calendars there. You said that you would take them home and sign them with a Bible verse, and I'll mail them off to Nancy. Would you do that?
I was searching.
Yeah.
Okay, so take those home, put a Bible verse on them or whatever you're going to do, and then I will send them to Nancy.
Okay.
And anyway,
This goes here.
those 2 can go in. These 2 don't because we have the what do you call it? The
I
music on
enjoyed-
Sunday.
I enjoyed
You mean
you
one of
helping
those
Charlie
custom
today.
installation
It
problems?
was fun, I really enjoyed it.